Since I did my video on the various kinds of atheism, some people asked me to do a video that specifically deals with Igtheism, the idea that God is just a nonsensical concept. An Igtheist, or a theological non-cognitivist, is someone who doesn't believe in God simply because they can't make any sense of the idea of God. The reason I see the notion of God, or at the very least the Abrahamic notion of God, as being nonsensical, is because properties which are ascribed to him seem to either be outright unintelligible or mutually contradictory. One pair of attributes that seem to me to be contradictory are omnipotence and omnibenevolence, or perfect goodness. I think if God is omnipotent, then he must be capable of doing evil. And even if he never actually does evil, the fact that he is capable of it means that he is potentially evil and thus not perfectly good. However, if he is not capable of doing evil, then he is not omnipotent. Now, some will say that God is good by nature, and therefore it would be logically contradictory for him to do something evil, and that the inability to do logically contradictory acts does not count against an entity's omnipotence. But it seems to me that in order for one to be meaningfully said to be omnipotent, one must have a nature that does not constrain the kinds of acts it is logically possible for one to perform. If being omnipotent only means being able to do things which are not logically contrary to one's nature, then I am omnipotent. I can do anything that's not logically contrary to my nature as a mortal, finite, material being. But of course I don't believe that I am omnipotent. I am not omnipotent precisely because it is my nature which constrains that which is logically possible for me to be able to do. It is my nature which renders me non-omnipotent. So in order for a being to meaningfully be said to be omnipotent, that being would have to have a nature that does not logically constrain its capabilities. If God can't do evil because he is good by nature, then his nature constrains his capabilities and he is therefore not omnipotent. But if God could do evil things, then God is potentially evil. And if a being is potentially evil, it is not perfectly good, even if it never actually does evil. Another attribute of God that makes no sense to me is the claim that God is spaceless and timeless. To say that God can exist spacelessly and timelessly seems to me to be the same as saying that God can exist nowhere and never. If God created space-time of his own free will, then he must be capable of existing in the absence of space-time. That makes no sense to me. I don't know what it means for something to exist in the absence of space-time, or at the very least some kind of extension through some kind of dimension. But I am especially confused by the idea that a conscious mind can exist without space-time. A conscious mind is always in motion, it's always in flux. I don't know how something which is completely static could be considered a conscious mind. Consciousness is a process, it's an event. If God is timeless, and some would also say changeless, then I don't know what it would mean for God to be a conscious mind. A changeless conscious mind is inconceivable to me. William Lane Craig once said that matter and energy cannot exist timelessly like God can because matter and energy are never quiescent. Matter and energy never stop moving and changing, therefore they cannot be timeless. But as theoretical bullshit pointed out, a conscious mind is never quiescent either, and I can't conceive of a conscious mind that is quiescent. That seems like a contradiction to me. I see no conceptual difference between a quiescent mind and an unconscious one. If the fact that matter and energy are never quiescent means that matter and energy cannot be timeless, then a conscious mind also cannot be timeless. So I, like other Igtheists, don't believe in God because I can't make any sense of the more common definitions of God. There may be other definitions that are more coherent, but I suspect that even those definitions would lack sufficient evidence.